Morning. Want to get a Republican
George.
response now from Senator James Lankford, Republican member of the Senate Intelligence Committee. Senator Lankford, thank you for joining us this morning. Let's start out with Andrew McCabe and this flurry of activity around his firing. Your take?
Not surprised in many ways. Obviously, he stepped away in January of this year because of some of the investigations. The Inspector General's had an ongoing investigation for months and months on this. The internal folks with the FBI have been through this long investigation. So in many ways, not surprised because he's already been isolated, and now they've finally come to this decision with the career folks.
How about these questions that you're investigating in the Senate Intelligence Committee? Of course, the Senate Intelligence Committee has been taking a somewhat different approach from the House. You've basically had a more bipartisan approach than the House committee. What more do you need to find right now? Starting out with that conclusion, the president has already reached, he says, no collusion between his campaign and the Russians.
Well, the president's been consistent to say that over and over again. What I have said over and over again as well is it's best for the special counsel to be able to go through their process. It's best for the president, best for the presidency for this to be resolved and to be finished one way or the other. And you're right. In the Senate Intel Committee, we work very hard to be able to keep this as bipartisan as possible. We have the first of our recommendations coming out next week on election security. We'll continue to be able to roll those out together over the next several months.
What more can you tell us about this compromising of Facebook information, the 50 million Facebook users having their information compromised by Cambridge Analytica?
Obviously, we don't know if this is connected to the campaign. This is something that Facebook has stepped out on. They said Cambridge Analytica gathered information, then they used that, they redistributed that. Facebook obviously is proprietary. They're a private business. They want to be able to have that data. They distributed that out with a cost, not some other second party to be able to do that. So there's more information coming out on that. We'll try to get resolved.
And sir, when you see the president and his attorney lobbying these attacks against the Mueller investigation, suggesting it should be shut down, how do you explain it, first of all? And then secondly, what can you do about it?
The clearest thing that I can explain from that is the president's exceptionally frustrated that he wants to be able to see this investigation come to an end. He has stated over and over again there was no collusion, there was no reaching back. Clearly, the Russians were reaching in. Even the Treasury this past week said what the Russians did was destabilizing, put in additional sanctions. Also, they have agreed with what Robert Mueller put out, identifying those individuals and the Internet Research Agency from Russia as entities that need to be sanctioned. That is in agreement with Robert Mueller and his investigation. So it's not that Mueller has found nothing. It's that the president seems to be very, very frustrated that they've not connected anything to him, and he wants to be able to move on. I would say the best thing the special counsel can do is to finish the investigation, gather all the information that's needed, come to a conclusion so the American people can make their own decision.
Do you have any quarrels with how Robert Mueller has conducted his investigation?
So far, he's been really good about trying to protect leaks from his investigation. That's what's exceptionally helpful. He seems to be moving through in a rapid way. It is odd the number of Democrats that he's put on board his team. That does raise some flags in some sense there. Clearly, he also identified some individuals that were biased, that were from the FBI, that he fired immediately once he found out that they were biased. That tainted that. He seems to be moving on from there. The key thing, again, that he can do is bring out the facts, and he seems to be doing that. Even with the indictment that he put out on the 13 Russians a few weeks ago, he put out a lot of facts and information, and that's very helpful.
You heard Congressman Schiff say that if the president does move to fire Robert Mueller, of course he can't do it himself, he'd have to get someone of justice to do it, that Congress should immediately pass an independent counsel law. Will you back that?
I don't see the president firing him. I think the White House has said 10 times, maybe more, that they are not going to fire Robert Mueller. They wanted to be able to finish the investigation. So I don't even think that's going to be necessary because the president's not going to fire him.
That might have held up before the statement from John Dowd yesterday, who's the president's attorney. Doesn't that change things? First time he suggests that Mueller should it actually should be shut down?
Oh, I don't think so. What I read yesterday was what a typical attorney puts out at every stage during every investigation, saying this is wrapped up, we should be done. So that's no different than what an attorney does typically. What typically happens in that situation, everyone takes the information from the attorney and says, that's nice, we're going to continue to be able to move on. I expect the special counsel to do the same.
Senator Lankford, thanks for your time this morning. When we come